Alright, today we're going to be doing the front struts on a 2003 Honda Civic EX. The struts on this are bad, so we're going to go ahead and, or at least they're going out, we're going to go ahead and replace them right now. And here's some of the tools you're going to need. Maybe not all of them, but you need a decent selection of tools, hand tools and whatnot. You can use air tools if you have them. I have them, so we'll use some of them. Make sure when you're dealing with struts, and especially when you get under the vehicle, use safety glasses, especially when you compress the spring on a strut, which I'll show you later. Use your safety glasses. And then here we're putting Honda parts in here. I recommend Honda struts. They last a long time. Some of the cheaper aftermarket ones don't last as long. You can put them in, but my experience is they only last 10 or 20,000 miles. You'll be doing it again. This car has about 160,000 miles, so and they're the original struts, so they've lasted a long time. Another thing to note, the lock washers, always replace your struts with new lock washers, and the struts from Honda do not come with the lock washer. Many of the aftermarket struts, especially the KYBs, do come with the lock nut, and so you don't have to buy it if you're getting KYBs. Those are pretty much the only aftermarket struts I recommend would be the KYBs if you're not going to go with OEM. And then this, we might not need to replace it, but I just have it on hand. This is the rubber bump stop. And in the case of this one, it also comes with the dust boot on top of it too, but the actual bump stop is right here. It's all one unit. And also, it's a good idea, chalk your wheels and put your emergency brake on so that the vehicle doesn't roll backwards. Alright, so we're going to jack the vehicle up. We're looking underneath the front of the vehicle right now. We're going to jack it up right here. As you can see, got this arrow right here telling you that's where you can jack it up. And then we're going to put the jack stands on the side of the vehicle. Alright, and then right here, these brackets right here, that's where the jack stands go. Right behind the front tires on each side. So we'll jack it up over there and then put the stands right there. Next we're going to pop the hood. Pop it right there. That way we can get inside the engine compartment. Lift this latch right here and then get in. And then here's where the struts mount to. These three right here are your mounting for your struts. These are the ones you're going to take off later. Leave this alone. Don't touch this until we compress the spring. Same on this side. Those are your three mounting fasteners, and then this holds the whole strut assembly together, so leave that alone until we get the spring compressed. And it's a good idea, especially if you live in an area where there's a lot of rust. Hit these with some penetrating oil. First thing we're going to do, we'll take off, or actually the second thing, we already jacked it up, put stands on there. We'll take the tires off. Now if you don't have impact tools, jack it up just a little bit so the tires are still touching the ground, and then break these loose. And then jack the car all the way up, put stands on it, and then you can finish taking them off. If you have an impact, you don't have to worry about having them on the ground because this will twist it off. Now this just comes right off. And then you can take the wheel off. By the way, while I'm thinking of it, these lug nuts, and pretty much all Hondas, 19mm. That's the size of the fastener. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do is just spray a little penetrating oil on these bolts that need to come off. Now we're gonna have to take this cotter pin off. I just used some side cutters. Straighten these ends out. And if you can, just tap it and then just use the cutters to walk it out. Just like that. You have to take it out. It's a good idea to not reuse these. I mean, you can, this one's in good shape. If we wanted to, we can reuse it, but we'll be replacing it. It's a good practice to replace cotter pins. Alright, now we just need to remove this fastener. It's a 17 millimeter. I'm going to use my impact for it. And then we're gonna have to hit this to knock this ball joint loose. It's a good idea. Keep the nut on there so you don't damage these threads when you hit it with the hammer. Just put it even, and that way, if you're not so good with your aim on the hammer, you won't damage the threads. Now you can use a pickle fork or some other things to get this ball joint loose, but a lot of times on these Hondas, you'll damage this bushing right here. So it's a good idea not to do it. And you're hitting the struts you're replacing anyways. You're not going to do any damage. So we just like that. Alright, next we need to remove this fastener right here. It's a 12 millimeter. Don't lose it. And then also there's a 10 millimeter fastener right here that we got to get loose. For some reason, for being such a small fastener, things are always in there kind of tight. So the strut will come out this way, and when we put it back in, we'll put it in like that. Keep the wires to the front of the vehicle, or the lines, and that way you won't accidentally get them behind, and then you'll be screwed and have to take everything apart. Now for the two big bolts right there, just gonna take and turn this and hold this side of the bolt. I'm going to do the bottom one first, so there's two of them. This side is a 22 millimeter, this side is a 19, so I'm going to turn the 19 side. Just remember, on most Hondas, on the front struts, usually the lower bolts for the struts usually go from front to rear, so that the nut is on in the rear and the bolt goes through from the front, and that's how these are. And just remember that when you're going to reinstall, and that's true for most Hondas. So there's the first one. That went way under there. And we'll do the second one, and I'll leave these in here for now until I take the top bolts out. Alright, we're just going to loosen these three fasteners right here. And these are 14 millimeter. And I'm just using a short extension just to get up above this stuff. Makes it a little bit easier to work. It's a good idea to have some little tray or something to keep these fasteners, because you will need them handy when you put the struts back in. You'll need them right here because the strut is kind of cumbersome and you want to get it bolted down as soon as you can. This one I'm just going to loosen up most of the way. Then I'm going to go underneath. And we're just going to put the jack right up under here just to hold this lower control arm. Otherwise, when you take these bolts out, this whole assembly wants to flop down, and you can pull your inner CV joint apart, or even out of the whole transmission, and that's just a pain. You don't want to do that. And also right here, if you look, this is your compliance joint, and when you let this drop down, it really puts a lot of pressure on that. So if we just put the jack right up under here, just to hold it from falling, you're not going to jack it up, but it'll just hold it, so that way it won't flop all around. And we'll probably just put a bungee cord here so this doesn't flop forward. Alright, if you can see, we just put the jack right here, right next to this bolt, or this fastener. So not on it, but right next to it. That's just to hold it. And then I have a little bungee cord here that I will hook around the lug nut there, just to keep it from flopping around. You don't absolutely have to do it, but you do take a chance of pulling it apart if you don't. And we'll just take these bolts out. Take the bottom one out first, it's a little bit easier. And you can take the top one out. Now, because I have the jack under there, it's holding this assembly up, so I can take this top nut off. And now when I pull this bolt out, it comes out a little bit easier, and this doesn't flop down. And then you just pull it apart like that. Just be careful, because this needs to go everywhere. And if you just use your knees like that, alright, you see how this wants to flop everywhere? Just like that, should be fine. Alright, you can see we have the strut out of the car. This is what it looks like. So the front of the car is this way. This one, they have it marked that this is to the rear. Silver dot, and it's covering a hole. There's a hole right there. Yours may or may not be marked. If it isn't, it's not a bad idea to mark which way the front is. You may even want to put a dot of paint or something on the front bolt. In this case, this one goes to the rear, so that's how we know where the orientation is when we put it back in the car. Just remember, don't take this bolt off until you compress the spring. You got to compress the spring, take the pressure off before you take this bolt off. In this case, we're going to use the professional spring compressor that's made just for struts. You can use these tools right here. You just put them on here and tighten the bolt. Make sure to relieve the pressure. Make sure you can move this between the spring and the strut, and then you're safe, and then you can take the nut off. We're going to use these. I've used those before, and I admit they kind of suck, so just remember, it's dangerous. Wear eye protection, and keep your body parts away from that stuff when you're using it. Alright, so in this case we just got the spring compressor, or the strut put inside the spring compressor. We'll just go ahead and start compressing it a little bit. And like I said, you just need to just get enough pressure so that the spring starts coming out of there, and then you don't have to go any further. And you can just see it's loose right there. I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to take this nut, try to loosen it. Sometimes you got to leave a little bit of pressure on the spring in order for this nut to turn, because sometimes this wants to turn. So we'll see what happens. And this 6mm head, and this is a, what is this, a 17mm. Put a little more pressure on there so it doesn't turn, and then break it loose like that. That's where a little penetrating oil helps. And you just take the nut off. This is a lock washer. Make sure to replace it. You can see we got a new one here. And then if you're using this type of setup, you can just unclamp it and just take the strut straight out. You can leave everything right in place. You just got to remember when you put it back in, that little divot right there needs to go right flush with the end of the spring. Just make sure to get it right at the edge there. Don't put it up on this or you'll bend it. Put it right there. And you can see this dust cover is broken. Otherwise it's not in bad shape. It's alright. If we wanted to, we could use it, but it won't recover. It won't cover everything. So in this case we have a brand new one right there, so we'll put that on. And good way to, well, probably don't need all these rocks in there. Bottom of your strut too. Good way to check. So that's really easy. See if it returns. It's returning, but not great. And here's the new one, and you can see that the Honda ones are marked left and right. You can see there's the L on the old one, barely, and then here's the L on the new one. So just make sure your parts look the same, the mounting brackets, everything lines up and looks the same. In this case they do. And then if you want, you can always, that was a lot stiffer to push down, and look how much better it rebounds. Definitely can tell that this is a good strut. Alright, let's get it put back in. Alright, in this case we'll just put the dust cover right over the top. You can see it goes right over the bottom there. Make sure that's still open, and then we're going to put the spring right in that nut there. Then now that I have the nut on there, I'm just going to put a little bit, just a little bit of tension to help me tighten that nut. Not much at all. And if you use aftermarket parts, it might be a slightly different setup, but it's pretty much all the same, where you're going to need to hold the shaft somehow and tighten the nut on top. And just get it snug, just like that. Tighten it up snug. And if you really want to know, the torque spec is 33 foot-pounds. Actually, all four of these are 33 foot-pounds. And now that we have that back on, now I can release the tension. Just got to make sure to get this straight in there. Alright, might take a little trial and error, but you can get that seated perfect. That'll definitely help you out with the alignment. Alright, there's the assembled strut assembly. Now it's ready to go back in the car. Alright, so just remember when you put it back in this case the alignment was to the rear. And so we'll put it in like that and get the bolt started. Take my bungee cord off. And it helps just to put your knees like that. And just push this up in. And that's where it helps to have a nut right here where you can get them started. Alright, in this case, I had to let the jack down just a hair. Now once you get that first bolt in, you're kind of home free. You can get the other one in. I like to get all the fasteners back in right now while I'm thinking of it, and then get them all tightened up. Just remember on this little guy, there's a little lip right here that goes into the bottom. There's a little hole in the bottom. So in order to line it up correctly, you got to put that tab back in the hole. Alright, now it's just a matter of snugging them up. Now Honda recommends that you put the weight of the vehicle on the suspension before you start snugging them down. These are 118 foot-pounds of torque, and this is 33. And then these are all 33. So in order to do that, we're just where we got the jack. Want to get a shot of it right under there, where the jack is. You got the jack right there next to the bolt. And we'll just go ahead and just gently raise the suspension up until it just starts to come off the jack, just like that. Now we can go ahead and tighten them all down. Alright, so first thing we'll do is we'll just snug up these 14 fasteners. And then these need to be put to 33 foot-pounds. Alright, good to go. Alright, I just got the impact dial down. This is 33 foot-pounds, so I'm just going to get it on there. Right there. And then we got to get these torqued down. Alright, I'm just going to snug it up with my impact. And then we'll do the final torque with the torque wrench. Need a short extension. They're torqued. Alright, now that you got all the main fasteners torqued down, we can take the load off the suspension. Now we just got to tighten the two small fasteners and put a cotter pin through there. So first thing we'll do is tighten the 10mm fastener right here. And this one's like 7.2 pounds. So just get it snug. That'll do it. And then the other one, right here, I mean, get this 12mm fastener snug down. Make sure you get this brake hose aligned properly. You will want to bind up on it. This one's like 16 foot-pound, but you just get it snug, that's it. You don't have to crank on it. You get it snug, you're good. Alright, so we got a new cotter pin. Just put it right in there. Get it all the way to the end. And Honda likes them to be bent down like this. And on the other side up. That you can bend them to the side too, but that's what it looks like. Should be in just like that. Alright, it's a good habit to get into. Just take a brief overview before you button everything back up. Make sure you got all your fasteners tightened. Make sure you tighten the two big ones. These two little ones, the 10 and the 12 here, make sure you got those. Make sure you got this one tightened and get the cotter pin in. And make sure you got these three on top tightened. And hopefully you should have already tightened that one before you even put it on the car. So just look over real quick, make sure you got everything squared away before you put the wheel back on. Alright, now we just need to get the tire put on. Make sure you get centered on the hub there, and make sure this little notch, if you have these, goes right here. And I'm going to use a torque stick. Honda's, pretty much all their lug nuts are, the torque spec is 80 foot-pounds, which is what this one is for. Alright, so now all we got to do is jack the car back up and get the stands out of there. And slowly lower it back down to ground. Alright, that about wraps it up. That's how you do struts or front struts on a 2003 Honda Civic. Many Hondas are very similar, especially the Civics with that style. Some of the Accords have a wishbone, but the whole situation is very similar when you learn how to do struts on a Honda, which is kind of nice. So just remember to put your hood down, and it's a good idea to get in alignment once you do your struts. Not absolutely vital, but it's a darn good idea to get in alignment anytime you do struts. Alright, just to check it, I have my torque wrench set to 80 foot-pounds. Let's see how close those torque sticks came. Pretty close. Not bad. not bad. Not bad. So you can see the torque stick got it pretty close, but it's a good idea if you have a torque wrench, get it out, set it to 80 foot-pounds, and set them properly.